Okay, well, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us for this episode of The Complete Advisor. And I've titled this, I've got a working title on this episode, and I'm calling it Second Chances. And the topic, what we're going to talk about, second chances, is those things that impact our lives that maybe change how we look at things, how we approach life, how we approach our family, how we approach work. And, those defining moments, a lot of times they just don't happen. And so I am joined with Glen Wantje. Good to have you here, Glen.
Thank you very much, Dennis.
So before we even, we'll dive into you a little bit here, but I want to tell everybody what happened, because I actually looked it up. I found it. I took it.
Yep.
So imagine it's January, so it's dark, about 5:40 in the evening, and you're getting gas. You're just a regular old guy getting gas, and you pull out, and all of a sudden, I don't even know. Well, I'll be curious to ask how fast everybody was going, but you're pulling out, and you're rocking a kind of that sport utility-ish GMC terrains, and you pull out and into the driver's side of your car, and you're pulling out onto looks like a road,
Two-lane highway.
Two-lane highway. You pull out, and what kisses your driver's side is a 2020 Ford F-250 Supercab.
That's right.
That's a big vehicle. Now I'm 6'4", and I do know that when I walk in front of some of these trucks nowadays, like literally the hood is like up to here. And so, but there you are. So car accident. I'm reading through it. Hits the driver's side. Both vehicles come to final rest. It said sustained disabling damage and were towed from the scene. Wantje was transported to Forbes Hospital, blah, 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 with suspected minor injuries. But that's not the true story, because these minor injuries, it wasn't minor injuries. It was much, much more. That's what I'm curious to talk about, because this was a big, big event. So tell me what happened.
Yes, exactly like you said. I was running some appointments. I needed a bottle of water. There was a gas station. I pulled in. I had about 10 minutes to kill before my next appointment. And I pulled out, and just like that, boom. And it was maybe 5, 10, 15 seconds. I sort of come to my wits, and all my windshield and everything was cracked and open. And I could see people talking and around the car and different things like that. And I tried to talk. I couldn't really talk. I was still in the car. I knew I was in an accident, of course. And I actually reached over to my coffee cup from the morning, and it was like a Yeti type a metal cup, and I actually had to throw it out of my front window, and I got the attention of two gentlemen that were standing right next to the car. So right away they come over and they said, quite frankly, they said, "Oh, Ma, we thought you were dead," And I said, I got to get out of this car. Can you help get my seatbelt? For whatever reason, I just couldn't unlock my seatbelt. So I got out and I crawled out of the car, the passenger side, because the driver's side, of course, was completely smashed. And I get out there and I stand up, and I was in pain. You know what I mean? I knew my neck hurt, my back hurt, my ribs hurt, my knee hurt. You know what I mean? And how are you doing? The ambulance was on its way, and it was a gloomy night. It was a little bit of sleet and rain and wintry mix. And they said ambulance is on the way in case you need it. And I was like, I should be okay. And one of the gentlemen there was a volunteer fire department head guy, and he was just like, you know what? He goes, go to the hospital regardless. That this was a pretty bad one. You'll want to go.
So you were going to go home if you could have gone home.
Well, I was just trying to catch my breath, and believe it or not, I actually texted my client saying I was in an accident. I'm not going to be there this evening. The state police were running a little bit late, and the ambulance got there, and right away the paramedics were like, no, let's go. Where's your pain? I'm like, my neck, my back, my ribs, my breathing. Yeah. And they said, okay, let's go. And when I got in the ambulance, guy goes, are you really doing okay? I said, yeah, I'm doing good. I said, can you call my wife for me real quick, tell her I was in an accident and all that stuff and where we're going and different things like that. And then all of a sudden it just started to, the pain started to go from, a 3 or 4 to a 9, 10, to where I might be hurt, So
you're sitting there. So let's dial back just a little bit. So You pulled out in front of this guy. Was there just that moment of glance that like, oh, smoky?
Not once. Basically, since it was a 2-lane road and we're all guilty of it, on the left-hand side of the lane, there's moving traffic going about 50, 55 miles per hour, and the right-hand lane coming out of the gas station is completely clear. There's no one. Yep. So as I pulled out, there was no one in the right-hand lane. But unfortunately, when I pulled out, one of the cars in the left-hand lane slammed on their brakes. Well, the gentleman in the 250, instead of plowing in the back of her car, he switched immediately into the right-hand lane to avoid hitting her in the back of her car. Well, when he switched into the right-hand lane was the instant I pulled out of the gas station and went to turn to go my way. So there was no inkling that I got hit. I mean, it was just no idea. I can imagine when a quarterback gets hit by a D end and they're just standing there and it's just blindsided. Yeah. Not one iota of an idea that I was even going to get hit.
Because you were out, right?
They said I was out for a few minutes, you know what I mean, which I think was about anywhere like under 5 minutes, and then I came to. But when I came to, I was fine. I shouldn't say fine physically. Mentally, fortunately, I was fine.
Did you know what had happened?
I knew I was in a wreck, and I didn't really know what was my. It was funny how the brain works, but you talked about different things, and my concern was calling my clients and canceling the appointment and calling my wife. You know what I mean? And because I thought maybe, boy, that hurts, but I just didn't think it was that serious at first.
So you've been. Let's talk about you for just a second. Then we got to go back to this story because there's more to come here. So you've been operating in. You're out in Pennsylvania, and you've been working with clients for
since college. So that would be 25 years now. Since 21, and I'm 46.
Nice. Yeah. What got you in the business?
I started with John Hancock solely because someone who I went to school with started with John Hancock. They were rolling out a new long-term care group, and it was a situation to where you can get trained. And quite frankly, to be 100% honest with you, it was because they paid you, a portion of your commissions up front. And it was just like, well, if they're going to pay me to get a license and do this, I'll go do it. And if I don't like it in 6 months, I'll look for something else. Yeah. So it sort of stuck, and then just here we are.
Off and on your own. So you're just a guy running some appointments on a cold January 12th evening. And
Yep.
Kapow. Okay, so you, in your practice, though, you are working with, you're doing life.
Correct.
You're doing retirement products.
Right.
Disability. Health. Okay, so you go in, because I think this is what I'm so curious about. So you talk about all these things with clients, and you run into resistance. I mean, just naturally, you run into resistance on stuff. So you have this incident. So where we last left off, though, you're in the ambulance, and the pain is gone from like a 3 to a 10. So you go to the hospital, and what the newspaper says, suspected minor injuries, which sounds like you cut your lip or something, maybe needed a stitch. To what did you end up finding out?
Yeah, so once I got to Forbes Regional Trauma Center, that was the closest trauma place to the accident. It was pretty amazing. It was probably 10 different people, different scans, did everything, and then the trauma surgeon come over and said that I broke my neck in a couple of different places, right at the base of my skull. They also said that they were waiting for results to come back, but they knew that my ribs were broken and displaced on the left-hand side. And then just some abdomen damage, more or less contusions just from getting hit hard. Nothing really that they could tell at that point was serious. No internal bleeding or anything like that. I ended up the next morning, throughout the night they stabilized me and ended up having surgery the next morning on my neck where they fused the C1 and the C2 together.
And then they put
Put 4 screws in my neck as well. And a little swivel, the little swivel in my neck actually allows my neck to turn left and right. You know what I mean?
Do you have trouble up and down?
No, not at all.
So that is fascinating. So they do all of this, and were you What did you think when they're telling you your neck is broken? I can't even imagine.
The scariest part was they continue to come over and squeeze your hands and move your toes.
Sure.
And but then once they knew that I didn't have any spinal cord injury, is where they sort of stabilized me and didn't want me to move at all. Since they knew I was going into surgery, one of the main reasons, if you remember, I told you earlier, I stopped in the gas station to get a bottle of water because my throat was so dry from a previous appointment, and I was going into a new one. They did not allow me to have anything around my no sip of water, no ice chip, anything. My throat was dry, and you're just sitting there like, can I have any type of water? And they just, none at all. So your mind is just sort of like, well, what's going on? And they're just like, you're just there. You're on a bed. You're stabilized. You can't move a muscle. And they're just like, we're going to wait to take you into surgery, which could be any time over the next 8 to 10 hours.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So that was that's the part where it hit. And then the second time it hit is when my wife finally got there, and she gets there and they're explaining to her what's going on. And I'm trying to explain to her, and they're just, don't talk, don't move, just be quiet. I try to ask, can I have a sip of water, please? And just like you see now, my throat's getting dry, and I need a sip of water. You cannot have anything.
You can't have water on this podcast.
You can't. Yeah, and you're sitting there, and you're just like, how about ice? I don't talk, Glenn. Just lay here, okay? You know what I mean? And you're just like, all right, you know what I mean? Can you move your fingers? Yes. Can you move your toes? Yes. Okay, that's good. And then in your head, it was always like, okay, well, what's going on? And the one doctor explained to me, yeah, you don't have any spinal cord injuries now, but if one of those bone fractures happens to move or readjust in your neck, then you could have some serious trouble. So it was scary.
You've got to be freaking out.
I definitely was.
So, all right, so we move forward, and a couple bio points, because, we're Facebook friends.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful wife, beautiful kids, beautiful family. You live out in a beautiful part of the country. You're an outdoorsy kind of guy. You like to do to do things. You're active, and all of a sudden, someone's telling you that if you sneeze, you might be dead,
or even worse, paralyzed. And I mean, I think that was the scarier part. Believe it or not. I mean, not that I'm afraid. No one wants to die. But the fact that we're in a situation to where it's like if you move the wrong way or you try to move, there's an instance of where your spinal cord could be compromised.
Yeah.
And right now we're fine, but we can't move. You're just like, all right, well, don't talk, don't drink. You're sitting there and your wife's there, and all you want to do is your adrenaline's flown, and you want to talk about the accident, and you want to do this, and you want to do that, and you just can't. You
go into surgery, and then?
Yeah, I come out of surgery, and they actually went right through my neck, not the back of my neck, but my throat, and is where they actually implemented it. Mm-hmm. And a lot less painful, and the recovery time is a lot better because they don't have to cut through much muscle. They just have to move the esophagus and work right on the C1 and C2. When you're in the hospital, you're stabilized, surgery went good, and you get a feel for like, okay, this is good, But at that point, then the ribs hurt more and more, and they still don't want you to move, So you're in the hospital bed and you can't walk, and you have the IVs and the different things, but you're really, again, just like I said, yes, I'm out of the sort of the quote unquote coffin. Mm-hmm. But I can't do anything. Medications every hour, ICU. The hard part about the ICU is both my kids are 13 and 11. They had a restriction of no one under the age of 16. Oh, yeah. So the kids are wondering stuff, and unfortunately, since I was about an hour and a half away from my residence and at the closest hospital, it was difficult for my wife to just go back and forth from the hospital because of about an hour and a half drive. So she would come, stay for a little bit, and then it's the middle of winter, and it's like, well, we're going to get a couple inches of snow. I'm going to have to leave to get home to the kids.
Yeah.
So just a lot of time just sitting there, and you can't sleep because I wasn't able to lay down. They had me in a chair, and it was just, you just sat there and just thought about things.
Well, it's amazing, too, how often I slept in a room when my dad had a bypass, and I could not believe, because I've never had to be in the hospital before, how often they come in during the night to like nudge you awake to, check on you or talk to you or provide some medication. So you're sitting there. This is a perfect segue then. So you're sitting there. You're getting all this thinking time. How has this changed how you approach things? Has it? Has it changed things? How you approach life, how you look at things, how you approach your business?
Yes, we'll start with life first. It definitely has changed my life. And the hardest part, honestly, is, when you sit there in the hospital, all that you wanted to do is say to yourself, I want to do all these things. I want to do this. I can't wait. I want to see the kids. I want to travel more. I want to do this. And, like you said, outdoors. I have a lot of unfinished business I still want to do in my life. I'm not done. I want to do it. And then once I eventually got out of the hospital and got home, the hardest part is that you have to step back and enjoy what you've already done in life.
Yeah.
Because I didn't, at first it was, I want to do this and let's do this and let's schedule this. And once I'm better and I could fly, I want to go here and I want to do this and take the kids here. And then sometimes it's just like, just sit on the couch here and just look at what we have and be so appreciative and take it all in. Because I think a lot of us get into a situation like I did on January 12th that I was just going through the motions. I just got up that morning, ran my appointments, knew I had a long drive, was seeing as many clients as possible that day because I was out of the office. And when I got out of the hospital, it was 8 days in the ICU. And when I got home, you still have my desk at home. I still had half a cup of coffee, and I had an envelope that wasn't finished being addressed, and you had different things because during that time, it just sat there. My wife knew I'd eventually be home, but and you get there and you look around and it just like all hits you like, man, you could just be right in the middle of something, addressing an envelope and you need a zip code, and you don't see that envelope again for 8-9 days.
Yeah.
And it's still a little bit of a struggle every once in a while, again, to try to do as much as I can in life, but really, really appreciate what I've already accomplished. And that goes in with business. Business is a little bit different. Business, it's something to where I still have so much to do as a firm, as a business, not only for my personal growth, but for my family as well. So it has fast-tracked me a little bit more to take out, okay, what are my goals, both short-term and long-term, and really refocus on them. We all make New Year's Day. It's, I got this resolution, and you know what? A lot of times we don't stick to them. But this one was one where when you get hit like that, it's sort of like, okay, well, my goals now have to be focused. This isn't a New Year's resolution. This all could have been taken away from me, and I'm not finished yet.
Do you? Wow, that is actually amazing. Do you? When you're working with clients and the conversation comes to a policy for life insurance or talking about medical benefits or the different types of insurance, do you feel like you come at it maybe a little more passionately? Is it more personal, or is it still business? No,
it's both. I have shared my story with the majority of my clients if it was in conversation. But I think where it hit home more for me on that end is to really just make people aware that things can happen to them at any particular time.
Yeah. And
what are the benefits and limitations of having insurance in your plan? Premiums, yes, of course. Nobody wants to pay premiums. My health care was fortunate. I had a good health care plan that we set up for the company, and my costs were very, very limited in the accident.
Good.
God forbid if something would have happened to me more permanently, we had something, but a lot of people don't. So yes, I do and will share my story because I could show them, just like the picture I showed you, that look,
I
was 46 years old driving down highway, stopped and got a bottle of water, pulled back out, and that's that. So it does hit home, but I don't want to hold the accident from it's still always their decision. I can share my thoughts and my personal experiences,
sure.
But this time I'm actually sharing my personal experiences, not just saying, oh, hey, it can happen to any one of us any day. I've heard that term with other advisors since it, like, oh man, things can happen instantly. And it's like, we all say it in the industry, and we all know it can happen to any one of us at any time. But when it does happen, we do have to take a step back and say, "Oof, that was a close one."
That must have been crazy. We're close in age. I'm just a little bit older than you, and as we age, you start to realize you only have so much time. But to have a situation where you actually see the light switch was like literally right there, and it could have been flicked. Amazing.
Yep.
So I have one last question for you for
Certainly.
the episode. Did you close that deal with that client you were going to see?
Yeah, we did. It was
Good.
good. So they were great. They were. We did. It was actually I was able to. What got me some sanity is it's a short little story. It was my laptop that I use when I was at the gas station. I opened it up real quick to get the client's address so I could punch it into my GPS just to make sure I was going. It was dark and wasn't really familiar with the area. And the day before, I went to Sherwin-Williams and bought 6 gallons of paint to repaint my daughter's bedroom and the hallway and everything like that for Christmas. She had it all pink. She's 11 now. She wanted a big girl's room.
Sure.
So we had all the paint in there. And when I got hit, all that was on the driver's side. And all of those paint cans on the inside of the car just exploded.
Oh, my gosh.
Everywhere, as you can imagine they would. The funniest part about it is I got a little bit of paint on me, but my laptop virtually cracked in half. And I was able to bend it back. And in the hospital, I had my work computer, and it survived. No paint, no major damage, no anything. So getting back to the client, yes, I was able to touch base with them a few days later, and it all worked out well.
Nice.
So very fortunate.
Yeah. Hey, man. Thanks for sharing the story. It's what you said about appreciating what you have. Taking a look around. That's big.
Great. Well, I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Glenn, thanks, sir.
All right. Thank you.
This podcast is for financial professional use only and not for use with the general public. The information provided is the exclusive property of Creative One and is protected by copyright and other intellectual property laws of the United States. This material has been prepared for informational and educational purposes only. It is not intended to provide, and should not be relied upon for, accounting, legal, tax or investment advice. Creative One is not responsible for the results of programs discussed on this podcast or any liability stemming from the use of it. Although we may promote or recommend the services offered by this company, agents are ultimately responsible for the use of any materials or services and agree to comply with the compliance requirements of their broker-dealer and registered investment advisor, if applicable, and the insurance carriers they represent. Copyright 2022, Creative One Marketing Corporation.